Hi everyone, I am Jeff Lords and I'm going to look at the game from round 6 of the FIDE Candidates Tournament taking place in Yekaterinburg in Russia at the moment, and it's between see on the standings, it's between the leader Jan Nepomniatchi, he's in sole first place, 3.5 out of 5, and this game's against Ding Liren, who had an atrocious start of 2 losses, sort of unfortunate start, and a win now would put him firmly back in contention, because in round 3 he bounced back with a game against Caruana, which I've covered earlier. So in this game we had e4 from Jan, we had e5 from Ding, knight f3, knight c6, we have Roy Lopez, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop to e7, and now d3. So instead of rook e1, when you sort of end up in some other anti-marshal or allow the marshal itself, which Ding plays. So we had b5, bishop to b3, d6, and now a3, securing a retreat square for the bishop. We had castles for black, and now knight c3, sort of intending to come here later. Knight a5, bishop a2. So bishop e6, this is all theory. b4, takes on a2, takes back. Knight c6, and now bishop to g5. So intending to take that and weaken the black's grip on the white squares. We had queen d7, so Ding's played this before. Bishop g5, bishop f6, bishop f6, knight d5, and now a5. So Ding had this against Magnus Carlsen and also against MVL, where they both played c4. So Jan was well prepared for this line, and he came prepared with a new move, rook b2. So we had a b4, a takes b4, bishop back to d8. So this is black's plan to put the knight here, and then drive the white knight back with c6. We had c4, knight d4, knight takes on d4, e takes on d4, and now queen to c2, continuing the build up on the c file, and also sort of giving a sort of a grip on the white squares. So he's intending if bc4 is going to take that with the queen. So Ding played rook e8, and this was the first point at which he said he was out of his computer prep. So after a few minutes thought, he played g3. Didn't spend long on it. He's a remarkably fast chess player. If you've never watched Jan, he's one of the probably the quickest of the top grandmasters, and it's an interesting that it puts a lot of pressure on his opponents, but he is known to sometimes make blunders. But in this tournament so far, this playing quickly has really worked out well for him. He seems to be really in excellent shape at the moment. So we had bc4, queen c4, c6, which you need to play that move, otherwise b5 is going to b5 would sort of really lock down the queen side in white's favour and fix a permanent weakness here. So we have c6, knight f4. And now this is Ding's concrete idea, is bishop g5, knight e2, so he's got rid of the knight from its strong square. But at the same time he's given himself double pawns. So now d5, this was his plan, ed5, cd5, queen b3. So white is sort of effectively a pawn up by this point, because this pawn is holding back the two double pawns. So white's basically got the outside pass b pawn, which hopes to go all the way, and black has to do something. So in return, he's going to attack over on the king's side, where white's queen can't easily relocate to that side of the board. So it's quite unbalanced. And Ding began with the move h5, and we had b5. So both players are playing on their side of the board, if you like. We had h4, b6, and now h3, which Jan described as well, he said that black was strategically losing after his reply king h1, which intends just to go knight g1, and then cover the f3 square, and later on the knight is, as well as safeguarding the king, can take here, especially in endgames. So the alternative for black, probably the best move, is rook b8, and then after something like b7, rook e7 to threaten to take that. We've got doubles rooks to protect it, and now queen g4. Now there doesn't seem to be much anything better for white than to play, because he can't consolidate the king side now like he did in the game. And after queen d5, for example, takes on g5, and now take on d3, and black seems to be the worst is over for black now in this position. You can't actually use the pawn at the moment because the rook's under attack, and black himself has got up as pawn. That position should be okay for black. But Ding played h3, king h1, beautiful move. This sort of cute idea of knight g1. So then we had rook e to b8. This was Ding's plan. Rook b1, bishop to d8, and now queen b5. Nepo wanted to play the move b7 when he said that after rook a7, he looked at this line, knight g1, g5, queen b5, and now he saw that black could give up the queen for two rooks, or rather give up two rooks for the queen, sorry. And then after queen f5, rook b8, he gave the absolutely astonishing line in the post-mortem, in the interview rather, of g4, allowing white to also get like two rooks and a piece for the queen. But after rook d8, king h7, this is remarkably difficult. And he said he couldn't evaluate this actually. He couldn't easily see that it was like a clear win for white. And unless you can do so, you wouldn't go into this, because white's sort of king side is very much locked down. I'll just give an example of a variation. Is rook b2 to protect f2, and then black can play queen d3, and then if white tries to bring the rook back this way to come to a1 or a2, then queen f1 threatens mate, and we can go f3, which is ready to sort of take here perhaps if we get a chance, or just to play this, and then play to play something like that, and then play rook f2 afterwards. But after the line gf3 intending f2, and we carry on with this for white. Rook a2, d3. We get this sort of amusing looking position where you often see three black pawns on the 6th rank like this. And there's something about a nice symmetry about it. But if we anyway, if we take this a bit more seriously, like I ought to do, and if we play rook f2, there's this really nice cute finish with queen g2, which when we'd go takes, and then takes again, and then d2, and white can't stop black getting a queen. It's not a force line, but it shows you, and all the different moves white has seems to end up in some sort of difficult situation like this, where it's not easy to extricate the white king side. But Jan played queen b5 to avoid that, and we had queen g4, and now queen d5. Although, like Jan said after the game, a better line is to play queen e8, king h7, and then queen f7. And that line actually should be good for white. For example, if rook b6, bishop b6, then knight g1 safeguards the king. And after, say, rook a7, then queen d5, and white's got a strong, at this level of chess, probably a winning position. In the game, we had queen d5, and this allows a sort of a miracle variation for black where he can save the game. Ding found the first move in the miracle line of rook a5, queen c6, and now he didn't manage to find the line. He actually played rook c5, but it turns out that rook b6 works, and now after rook b6, queen e2, rook b2 would run into queen b2, rook b2, and then checkmate along the back rank. But if instead, I'll just go down that again. If rook b6, queen e2, rook b, instead of rook b2, if white plays rook b8, which is the critical line, just sort of going to win the bishop, and the queen is stopping black from mating along here. Black has the absolutely crazy move, rook e5, which allows white to take this off with check, which he can do now with rook d8, king h7. Now there's a threat of queen e1 mating, so white's forced to play, well, he can play rook g1, but then queen f2 turns out to be good for black, because if, for example, if you play rook d5, you run into queen f3 mating, and if queen a8, after rook g1, queen f2, yes, if white plays queen a8 in this position, then the other point is that we can play rook a2, rook e1 rather, and this time there's no way to defend the rook on g1. And if you play rook h8, king g6, queen c6, f6, and then white is losing. So in this line, white won't be able to play after rook g1, queen f2. White would be obliged to play to bail out basically with this move. It's quite incredible that white's a rook up, black's not threatening an immediate mate in one. He's a whole rook down, and yet it's white that's having to sort of bail out here with rook h8, and then after king takes, queen here, king h7, queen h3. But this is black's absolutely fine here, and ends in a draw. So it's an absolutely miracle find, and only a computer will say it. In fact, Jan did say that if anyone found that for black, they'd have to throw them out for cheating, because there's just no way a human being should be able to find that. But in the game, Ding played rook c5, and then we had check on e8, king h7, and now the knight g1. So this is the point behind king h1. It completely sort of cocoons and safeguards the king, and also it's really strong, ready for the endgame to attack this pawn here. So basically black's attack is, because of the pawn on h3, it seems to be blocked. So Ding, he desperately tried rook b6, and after queen d8 we had rook b2, now rook c1, hoping to either play here and, well, that's checkmate, or to take on g1 and then queen d1 mating. But Jan played queen h4, check, queen h4, gh4, and now Ding's pinned his hopes on the next move, rook d1. But now after f3, he, in this position, Ding Liren actually resigned the game. And just have a quick look at why. For example, if black plays rook takes d3, we can play knight h3, and then, well, unless you take on f3, you're just going to lose on material, because you've only got one pawn for the piece. and you can't make it 2 pawns for the piece because of knight g5 winning. And if instead black just tries to sit tight and says to white, well, how are you going to get your knight up back into the game? And if you ever move the rook off from here, then the d3 pawn goes. But white can play. So say black plays, for example, f6. White can play rook b4. Now white can't allow rook takes d4. So be rook d3, and now we can take this one. Black is obliged to take on on f3, otherwise it's just one pawn for the piece. But then we can go king g2. You must go rook back to defend the pawn. And now knight g1, which intends to go knight f3 and win the d pawn. So say you play rook d1, we can go knight f3, d3, and now rook d4, and there's no way black can prevent white just playing the king here and taking on d3, and the knight does a wonderful job of protecting these 2 pawns. But I'll just carry on a bit further. For example, king g6, we can go king f2, king f5, king e3, and after g6, white could play check, king e6, and now rook e4. You can't go king f5 because knight d4 is actually mate, which is quite nice but unnecessary. And after king f7, we've driven the king back, so now we might as well just take the pawn, and once the pawn goes, it's all over. So that's why Ding resigned. So after that game, Yanni was already in the sole lead, is now extended his lead because MVL drew his game. So Nepo now, after 6 rounds, is a full point clear. But he looked slightly ill in the interview actually, but he said he's been tested and he's okay. But we'll see how he gets on in the remainder of the tournament. He's in very fine form indeed. Thank you for watching. Bye now.